take the stage. It won't be normal. It may not even be the new normal, but it is as close as we'll get to normal for now. So for the first time in 4 tumultuous months, we get to say welcome to the show, because MLS is back.
That was tough. Yeah, and I mean, originally, sure, that deal we signed was the best deal. And we took a different tack. I think that we chose to negotiate over a longer period of time. I think that a lot of people question that. I think that in the intermittent time frames when we were negotiating, when it was 1.5 years or 2 years out from the deal, people are saying, well, why are we talking and nothing's happening? But it all kind of came to fruition that, no, this was the right way to do it, where we could almost guide the league more openly toward the things we wanted rather than hope to come to a contentious ending that ends in our favor. We just kind of realized over time that that wasn't the way to go. And so that deal was very good. We went through all of our normal steps and the world was changed in a way that nobody could have ever predicted.
When it comes to suspending play to further notice due to the coronavirus, this happening, of course, the NBA suspending play last night with Rudy Gobert testing positive there. This is
without COVID, we're still living that deal.
The aftermath of the 2020 negotiation was certainly one of the most challenging periods in our history, for sure, and in large part because we felt so good coming out of 2020. And not that we got everything we wanted. You never do. We were happy with the deal. We were happy with what the next CBA was going to look like. But more so because we made great strides in terms of the process internally and how to go about it and the best way to engage more players and the best way to manage differing opinions and the best way to manage what happened at the table. All of those were so positive.
The hardest piece is hindsight's 2020. So, the dynamic of these deals had always been, and we didn't see any reason to have it any different this time, and people don't understand this, and I get it, is you don't walk away from the deal with a collective bargaining agreement with all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. You walk away from the deal with a term sheet, could be extensive, that you then have to take and put into a full-blown collective bargaining agreement with all the legal language. And that's almost a separate negotiation. And we had, I think correctly, had determined that we're not going to run out and ratify this until we get a full-blown collective bargaining agreement for 2 reasons. One, I think players need to understand what's in the full-blown collective bargaining agreement oftentimes, but more importantly, not ratifying it is going to give us leverage in that sort of second legal negotiation over the collective bargaining agreement. And that's the right strategy. I still think it's the right strategy. Had I known the world was going to shut down, then no, we certainly would have done things differently. So the hardest part is hindsight's 2020, and if we could do it all over again, we would have ratified immediately.
It was a shockingly depressing moment, for sure. I think we got about a month, maybe 6 weeks of relative peace and happiness, just enough to catch up on sleep and feel like we weren't still on pins and needles from the negotiation. And then we were right back into it. And not only that, right back into it in our respective basements, or in my case, bedroom, and looking at a computer screen rather than being in the same room and being able to talk face to face to people. The other thing that was totally different than anything that had ever happened to us is we were playing defense, and we'd never had to be defensive. One of the benefits from starting where we started was, as I said, nowhere to go but up, but that means you're always gaining more things. The June of 2020 and the 2021 negotiations were the first time where we were defending what we had already achieved and trying not to give anything back.
It was just a perfect storm. Every single professional sports organization globally had to deal with, okay, how do we reconcile no revenue, lost revenue, television contracts, etc. And we were just doing it in a moment without a CBA because of the timing. And it was really, really tough because of the added pressure of the MLS is Back tournament, that sort of, the carrot that the league dangled and says, no, this has nothing to do with the deal, but I clearly had everything, almost everything to do with the deal. It was like, come on, guys, play ball here. We were in the middle of a pandemic, something that none of us had ever lived through before, a unique experience that was threatening lives across the globe, and the future of the league and its negotiations with the PA hinged upon whether we were going to travel, leave our families amidst a pandemic. And it was like, how do you reconcile those things? How do you decide? And you talk about players and locker rooms being split, then you're talking about layers of things. It's like, okay, do you want this deal or not want this deal? But then also hinged upon whether you want to go or willing to play or leave your family or whatever. And, it was an additional sort of question that guys struggled to really answer.
It wasn't about me. It's not about the e-board. It's about the player pool. And the player pool is a challenge because it's 700 different voices, 700 different situations. And ultimately, majority wins. And when you break it down, the majority of players needed to get back to the field because they needed the paycheck. And that doesn't get enough credit, right? I think people think of the NBA because, there are more eyes on the NBA. And that's a testament to the hours, the day-long conversations that people who are a part of the e-board, people who are part of the PA, the staff on the PA gave up. They gave up that time because they understood that the cause is worth it. And eventually, we not only got back to the field of play, but we did it with a very favorable negotiation.
I remember that drive to basically get on that flight and being like, there was so much uncertainty in the world. Anything could have happened. And when you look back, it's like, oh, it was fine. Yeah, a couple of people got sick and whatever. The tournament got off, and it was terrific. And it was like, that was a massive wager. Within a sense, with human life, like forget the CBA. It was like anything could have happened. Now we've gotten to the place with vaccinations, and we're in a totally different spot. And you forget where we were prior to vaccines and complete understanding of the virus at that time.
The June of 2020 and the 2021 negotiations, we weren't powerless. We just had to choose between options that neither of which were great. But we had the ability to make those choices. We could have taken a stoppage in either case, and the league would have gone on. Whether we would have done better doing that than not taking one, it's impossible to know for sure. But we did have that option, and players in both situations used their voices very effectively and very loudly, and stood up for what they thought was right in a way that, it's an odd thing to say, but was inspiring to watch, despite the fact that it was happening in horrible circumstances and in a miserable negotiation. But we probably never had true solidarity reach the peak that it reached in 2021, when we had over 100 players on a Zoom call with owners and league staff talking about what they were about to do.
And any negotiation comes with bruises, comes with scratches, but we didn't lose an arm, in the process. And I felt like we still came out of it in a way that feels like the momentum is still forward, and that we're still pushing this thing forward. And that not only is the league still in a good place, but the league is the type of league that we want to be a part of going forward.
If we really, really, really know all of our players inside and out, everything about them, then we will be successful. We will be able to make the right choices and keep them together and keep them rallying around the things that they should be. And the things that they should be rallying around are what they collectively think is most important.
You've got a short window. Some are longer than others, but regardless, it's going to be short. And, it's really important to get involved, to put your stamp on things, to educate yourself, first and foremost, to then be able to educate your teammates, to ultimately, do what those before you have done. And that's to stand up for what you believe is right, to fight for what you believe is right, and to, do things in a honest, respectful way and move the game forward.
And you have to understand the ramifications of not making this thing better, or not caring, or not trying your hardest, or not being responsible. There was a point that we've talked about where this league might have folded, right? And all these kids who are making lots of money now, deservedly so, and are playing at high levels, might not have happened, right? Or maybe not as easily. Would have been much harder. So there is a responsibility that at a minimum, you're not making it worse, and you're trying to make it better for everybody now and those who come after you. That's what guys like Kobe and Agus and Eddie Pope and all the guys, Casey Keller and all those guys before my generation, who I played with a little bit before, they pushed, and then the guys before that, Desmond Armstrongs and all those guys, pushed it forward to get it to where we could actually make money. They made zero money, and now we're pushing it forward so that the game is better and healthier, and there's great fans in the stands, etc.
I think what we did was important work, but there was also an element of survival there. We were also trying to do what was best in that particular moment. And I think if I had any encouraging words for the current players, of course you want to keep that energy going, but what do they want the league to become? How do they want to shape it in a way that's going to be better for whoever comes next? They're living their time right now. Great. What do they love about it? What do they not like about it? And how can they make decisions and influence what it looks like moving forward? That is the responsibility that I think that they have, and that they shouldn't shirk. They need to take that on and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that. And it's not hard because you have the resources and the people in place to make that happen. They just have to voice their concerns or take on more leadership to have that. And if they do that, then the league's going to continue to grow and get into a good place.
One thing that I think people don't necessarily understand about players' associations is that they are really living, breathing organizations. The Players Association is the players, and with all of the strengths and talents that the player pool has, all of that is the Players Association. We're the voice of those players, the players that came before, the players that are going to come next, and the players that are there now. So it's not a case of a corporate organization of some sort that does X and does Y. It's a collection of all of the opinions, all of the talents of a large group of people that gets larger every year. That's what the PA is. It's certainly, it's not me, it's not the staff, it's not this office, it's not the material successes that we've been able to achieve. It's the brotherhood of the players and the solidarity that they have always shown and continue to show. That's what the PA is.